The Shroud of Turin has been a topic of debate for centuries, and a new study in August 2024 revealed something surprising. Stick around for all the details, but before we dive in, scientists from Italy's National Research Council's Institute of Crystallography recently took a closer look at the Shroud of Turin. For those who don't know, the shroud is believed to be the cloth Jesus was wrapped in after his crucifixion. It first appeared in public in the 14th century, but many critics argue it's not the actual burial cloth of Christ, suggesting it's a medieval fake. According to the Bible, Joseph of Arimathea wrapped Jesus in a cloth and laid him in a tomb, where he later rose from the dead. The shroud has puzzled skeptics for years due to its mysterious features. There's a faint, seemingly unpainted image of a man on the cloth, along with traces of blood. What's unusual is that the image looks like a photographic negative, showing a man between 5 feet 7 inches and 6 feet tall, who appears to have been tortured, crowned with thorns, and crucified. Even if it were a 14th century fake, photography didn't exist back then. So how did something like this come to be? That's where things get really interesting. A new study has revealed information that could change our understanding of the Turin shroud, believed by some to be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ. Researchers have found iron-containing particles in the bloodstains on the shroud, which are usually created by muscle contractions. This microscopic evidence supports the idea that Jesus experienced intense torture. The study also noted that the shroud contains many bloodstains that match the wounds Jesus would have suffered, including marks on the hands and feet from crucifixion. Additionally, there is a bloodstain on the chest, likely from the post-mortem spear wound described in the Bible. Gio Fanti, an associate professor of mechanical and thermal measurements at the University of Padua, has been studying and writing about the Turin shroud since 2004. The Shroud of Turin has been the focus of many research studies, but have you ever wondered where the funding for these studies comes from? According to a report, some of the funding came from a religious group that wanted to stay anonymous. They gave a task to Fanti to analyze a piece of cloth called the Padre Pio handkerchief. This cloth has 2 images on it, one of Jesus Christ and the other of Saint Pio of Pietrelcina, both believed to be miraculous. The report says that Fanti and engineer Christian Privitera's initial study found a nearly transparent substance between the threads of the blood-stained shroud. It was suggested that this substance might be a semi-transparent fluid produced by pulmonary edema, a condition where fluid builds up in the lungs. The report also mentions that other experts who have studied the Shroud of Turin agree with this idea, connecting it to what is believed to have happened to Jesus during the crucifixion. The Shroud of Turin, according to tradition and scientific research, is believed to be the cloth that was used to cover and cleanse Jesus' face after his crucifixion. Fanti's analysis of the shroud suggests that the man's right eye was more sunken, with a vertical mark over the eyelid, possibly caused by another blow to the head. This finding matches the gospel accounts of Jesus' torture, including the flagellation. A report suggests that a wound caused by a thorn from the crown placed on Jesus' head could explain the mark on the right eye instead of a scourge mark. Picture a 14 by 4 foot piece of cloth with a full-length image of a man, showing wounds on both the front and back. This image closely matches the details of Jesus' suffering during his crucifixion, as described in the Gospels. It brings those stories to life, almost like an ancient photograph. The Catholic Church has never officially confirmed the authenticity of the Shroud of Turin. They believe science should determine its origin and age. For years, scientists have debated the shroud's authenticity, with conflicting results. Is the shroud real or a medieval fake? Many people think it's fake, but here's where the mystery deepens. A 1988 carbon dating test claimed the cloth was from the 12th century, but this test has been challenged. Critics argue that the carbon dating was done on a repaired part of the shroud from the Middle Ages, not the original fabric. In 2014, Italian forensic scientists Matteo Barini and Luigi Garlascelli studied the bloodstains on the shroud and found they didn't match those of someone who was crucified. This study was published in 2018 in the Journal of Forensic Sciences. Garlascelli also made a YouTube video in 2015, showing an experiment where he used a sponge and a plastic mannequin to compare blood flow patterns. Many experts have questioned this study, saying it contradicts earlier research that used bodies of men who died from heart-related blood clots, which could have been the cause of Jesus' death on the cross. In the 1980s, scientists used carbon dating on the shroud and concluded it was made during the Middle Ages. Based on that, many people believe it isn't Christ's burial cloth but rather a medieval fake. That's the most well-known fact about the Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin has always been a mystery with many unanswered questions. What part of the shroud did scientists study? Was it contaminated? Were the dating results accurate? Get ready, because the latest findings are surprising. A new study has emerged that seems more precise. Researchers looked at the natural aging of the flax in the shroud to estimate its age. Using X-rays, they examined 8 tiny samples from the cloth to learn about its structure. Since cellulose breaks down over time, they used this information to reverse calculate the shroud's age. The results show that the fabric likely dates back to the 1st century, between 55 and 74 AD. In comparison, the 1988 study, which claimed the shroud was from the 13th or 14th century, used samples. Imagine presenting people with research that says, "This cloth is ancient," and the image on it is a photographic negative. How would they react? For some, even devout people, it would be mind-blowing and even a little scary. Some might say it's too unbelievable to believe in something like the Shroud of Turin. Then there's another miraculous cloth called the tilma of Our Lady of Guadalupe, which has puzzled people for 500 years. This cloth, originally from a peasant's garment, should have worn out after 30 or 40 years, but it's still in great shape. In the early 20th century, anarchists tried to blow up the church where the tilma was kept, but the cloth survived. Instead, a crucifix bent around it, almost as if it was protecting the cloth. What's even more incredible is that, upon closer examination, scientists found that the eyes on the image were so realistic they even reflected the room where the tilma was displayed. It sounds like something out of a mystery novel, but it's true. Even devout people sometimes struggle with things like the Shroud of Turin and the tilma of Our Lady of Guadalupe. They may say, no, religion is abstract and has nothing to do with these physical objects or events. A passage from 1 Corinthians says, "The Greeks seek wisdom, and the Jews look for signs. But we preach Christ crucified." Some people might find it foolish or confusing, but for believers, Christ represents God's power and wisdom. God's weakness is stronger than human strength, and his foolishness is wiser than human wisdom. When you read a study like this, it might make you think, wow, this could really be the burial shroud of Christ. You might also wonder if the image on the shroud is a miracle that no one can explain. The simplest and most convincing answer could be that these are real miracles. You may suddenly think, maybe what the Bible and the church teach about how God wants to be worshipped and how we should live is actually true. It becomes something real and important, not just theoretical ideas. For many, this might be surprising. It's unsettling to think that religion could be more than just personal choice. It might offer real, tangible answers. What if there's an actual truth and a right way to live? You might need to use reason to accept faith, live morally, and truly understand God.